For now, let's get on with the show.
Good day to you, and welcome to this week's episode of the Property Doctor podcast, with me, your host, Dr. Andrew Threadgold. This week we'll be talking to Mike Lawson from Lawson's Lettings. Mike's a lovely chap, originally from Scotland, who now lives over in Dubai, and he's managed to scale a significant portfolio whilst living outside the country. So this week we'll be talking to Mike about how he's done it. What kind of things are the challenges when you're not even in the same country as your portfolio, how you manage your build teams, and raising finance when you're not even eligible for UK lenders. So, without further ado, let's crack on, sit back and enjoy.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Property Doctor podcast with me, your host, Andrew Threadgold. This week, we're talking to someone that I've been wanting on the podcast for a little while now. He's part of the wider property community and him and I have interacted a little bit in the past. But I'd love to introduce you to a lovely gentleman called Michael Lawson, who is an expat, lives over in Dubai, but is a bit of a globetrotter and has a fantastic portfolio of properties, particularly in Scotland. So I think we'll have some very interesting conversations about what it's like being an expat and how you get to manage properties at scale when you're not even in the country, which is something that I can't even imagine how to do. So I'd like to introduce you all to Michael. How are you doing, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely great. Yeah, delighted the podcast.
Great stuff. Is it Michael or Mike?
Mike's fine.
Mike's fine. Fantastic. So you look like you're in a very sunny place at the minute. Are you over in Dubai?
Yeah, so I'm in Dubai right now. So I'm here full time. I've lived in Dubai now for 8 years, and honestly, I love living here. Like most expats in Dubai, I came over here for the cliche 2 years, make a bit of money, go back home, and all that. And 8 years later, I'm still here.
8 years.
Kind of no intention of leaving.
Wow. Okay. So 8 years ago, it would have been a very different place to what it is now.
Do you know the crazy thing about Dubai is, I think unlike the UK, is that things just happen here within the space of weeks. I'll give you an example. There was, when I first moved to Dubai, I lived in this apartment that overlooked JBR Beach, and there was if you look there now, there's a giant big wheel on the island with a hotel over a Caesar's Palace hotel. But when I first moved to Dubai, that island didn't exist.
Right.
They just started reclaiming the land by pumping sand in and rocks, and I don't know how to do these things.
Yeah.
Now there's this giant big wheel. It's called Caesar's Palace Hotel. There's apartments, and it's amazing. And that's within 8 years that's happened. So the pace of development in Dubai is honestly, it's quite inspiring actually. And I think the culture's changed in Dubai as well. When I came across here, it was the 2-year thing, right? Everyone came for the 2-year thing in the sun. They worked really hard Sunday to Thursday at that point, and then on the last at the weekends, had a good time and a bit of time in the sun. And then, within 2 years, they were off back home with their bag of cash for their deposit on their house.
Yeah.
And that's changed now. People are living here long term. I've got friends that have been here now for 10, 15 years. They don't want to go back home. Life's quite good here now. There's
really?
lots of visa caps that allows people to live here long term, and we're seeing so many people out here. Every week goes by, someone contacts me about moving out here, and if anyone's got questions about moving to Dubai, I'm happy. Just ping me on Instagram. I'm happy to kind of put people in the right direction.
Fantastic. I would love to. I don't think. In fact, I very nearly went to Qatar. I seriously, with intent, looked at going to Qatar as a GP. 2 years in the sun, bag of cash, and get out of the NHS for a bit. And then that was before property. And I even bought a book on learning Arabic, and I was definitely looking at it. But the whole medical thing out there, it turned into. They reduced the rates because they saw what doctors in the UK were being paid, and they reduced their rates accordingly. So rather than it being actually worthwhile going, it wasn't that much. And the similar thing in Dubai. If you're a GP, especially in Dubai, I'm sure that you do have better terms and conditions than over here. Hot topic at the minute in the UK with junior doctor strikes and all the rest of it. but it just wasn't worth the upheaval. And then property happened for us. But I digress. So speaking of property, you don't sound like you're a native to Dubai. So where are you from originally, and how did you end up in property?
Yeah, so I'm from Scotland, from a little village called Newport. It's in between St Andrews and Dundee.
Okay.
So I grew up there. To be honest with you, I haven't lived back there for a really long time. I've not lived there since I was 17. I've sort of been traveling and living in London and Australia and away for university and stuff. So I've not really been back home there, but it is home for me, and that's where my family is, and that's kind of where my community is, if you like. So
Yeah.
that's where I've always built my kind of investment portfolio. So that's where we have the business. That's where we're pretty heavily invested right now. And I guess it'll always be home, whether or not I live there.
So how do you when did you first notice property then? Was that something that when you were a kid other people had, or are you from a family that had a portfolio?
To be honest with you, it's in my family. My family have been investing for about 30 years. Mum and dad had a pretty small portfolio. They had about 15 at one point. But I saw them. I mean, they were taking out like car loans back in the day to buy houses and stuff like that, buying flats, Yeah. Those flats were on grand these days, but they built their portfolio and retired pretty early. My mum and dad both retired in their 50s, early 50s. Right. So they got out of the rat race quite quickly, and it seemed like a good way of life for me. So it was kind of ingrained in me. I would spend, when as a kid, we'd be out on the job doing refurb, stripping wallpaper and stuff like that. So stuck in. So I kind of learned quite a lot of it on the job. I learned process of a refurb from a young age of kind of knowing how to do it. So so I started getting into it then. And then when I graduated university, I made it my absolute mission to buy my first property. And I bought this little 1-bed flat for 75 grand, and I did a loft conversion to it. I got it revalued at 105, and then I refinanced the money out, and then I bought another one. This was back in just after the crash, so like 2007. So 2007 or something like 2008, something like that. And then I just started buying bit by bit. I moved to London at that point because there's no jobs in Scotland, not in the industry I wanted to be in. So I was living in London, and every year when I got a bonus, or I'd have a little bit of savings here and there, I try and buy one more property. They were quite cheap back then, stuff that's now going for 130, I was buying for 70, 80 grand. So it worked quite well.
I bet you wish you could have bought more, right?
You know what? Back then, I wasn't excited by it at all. It was like a means to an end. I knew I had to do this, but back then, and I guess to the extent now, I'm really passionate about travel. So I was really, really into it. That's what I was really. So for me, I feel like nowadays I'm collecting property. Back then, I was collecting countries. Right. It was all about my big dream in life is to go to every country in the world. So I've been to 122 countries, but back in the 20s, it was just about, how can I get the next trip to, I don't know, Africa or, Asia or something. So
that's amazing that you're so open-minded and so traveled. I think that's really refreshing, because a lot of people have especially people that are new to property, are finding a way out of their, like they're trapped in a situation, and property is a means to getting out of that situation. And I only hope that my kids can see what we're doing and follow on and take the lessons from it the way you have. And we've tried to travel them, we've tried to broaden minds, but I think travel definitely broadens the mind more than anything else. And if you've got something like property that provides some sort of residual income that enables you to do that, then that's got to be one of the nicest feelings that you can have.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think for my family, it's been an absolute game changer. We're not from money. My dad was a fireman, my mum was a secretary, so they just worked really hard. Do you know what I mean? And they got themselves in a place with over kind of a 10-year period that they could take a step back from their full-time roles and live quite modestly and just run a property business. So So that's kind of where we're at right now. And that's
Are
how
your
I kind of.
parents still going? Are they still in property? Are they still?
So yeah, we'll get to that. That's it's a big number one question, I think, really. So my mum is in the business, if you like, with a big speech quotation marks. She works full time for the business. She's employed by the business, and she runs the day-to-day management of the business. Got two part-time staff, my dad and my great uncle, who's about 85 years old, but he's built like an ox and works like an ox. And they are the project managers, if you like. So when we've got projects on the go, they'll work for the business then, and they'll manage the project, manage the tradesmen and stuff day to day. So it's a real family affair. We've got quite defined roles in the business. Everyone does their own sort of thing. But it's to be honest with you, we're at the point now where we are looking to bring on another staff member, and at that point, my mum will take a step back and she'll not do the business anymore. So she wants to enjoy her retirement, So
that's lovely. That is really nice. And
categorically, I couldn't have done it without them. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that they have been my biggest supporters. They've backed the business straight away. And the great thing is they've been doing this for sort of 30 odd years. So you're tapping into 30 years of experience straight away, so it's really great. I think really the interesting thing about our business is that we only invest in two areas. So two postcodes, it's DD6 and KY15.
Okay.
It's a really small area. We invest heavily in a couple of small towns and one larger town. But that's all. So we have kind of no ambition to go out with those areas. So
why is that then? Why such a very focused area?
Yeah, I grew up in those areas. I grew up in DD6, in a little village called Tayport. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's the most wonderful market in the world. Everyone should jump in there tomorrow.
I could say everybody on Rightmove, DD6. Hey, it's for Dundee.
It's just not that simple. These are little small communities, and there's little niches in those communities. And we only know it because we're from there, right? And I know it. A lot of the people I went to school with, a lot of the tradesmen I use are mates of mine, So we've got quite a community kind of feel to it, So that's the way we run things, and we run our business. I would think I'd like to think kind of quite different than kind of most kind of bigger buy-to-let landlords. We have this ambition to be the best private landlord in Fife. That's our goal. That we really want to be providing the highest quality of service. Don't get me wrong, our properties are not the cheapest. You can definitely get a cheaper property than ours, but I think with price you trade off quality. Our properties are all really high quality. If you walk into them, they're all fully refurbed. They've got decent boilers. They've got they're all C-rated, fully insulated.
Really?
Good
right.
Wow. I mean, we went through a huge series of renovations over the past 18 months. We're not quite there yet. We've got, I think, last count was like 23 left that are still a D that we have plans for them to do over the next kind of 18 months and through them all as well. But we want to be the best landlord. I don't want to be renting crappy properties. I don't want to be known as that guy, that slumdog landlord. That's not me. When I was at university, when I lived in London, I rented some horrific properties. Geez, I live in Dubai right now. I hope my landlord's not listening, but my house is falling down. It's
really
awful.
It can't be more than 5 years old, can it?
This house was built in 2009, and it's literally, there's big cracks in the walls, and the windows are all leaking. Anyway, I diverge. But I don't want to be known as renting those kind of properties. I want to be known as the guy who rents the highest quality homes. Yes. And when you go on our social media, when you look at how we kind of convey ourselves and promote ourselves, and how we interact with our tenants, we do so more in a kind of a way that like a housing association would work with tenants. We talk about as their homes. We try to support them and help them. Silly things like you could rent for free off us a dehumidifier this winter, because we know that tenants are not turning on their heating like they were before. So there's big
Mm-hmm.
mold issues, whether they like it or not, they're going to get it to heat their homes. So things like that. We have biannual newsletters that come out that have different updates about things happening in the community. We try to sponsor the local school for all their events.
Wow.
We're quite active in the community because at the end of the day, it's our community, and we own a lot of houses in those communities. So
that's amazing.
We want to support our tenants.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really interesting. So one of the philosophies that that I like to hear people talk about, and it's something that we live by, is that we would, when we do a property, I mean, first of all, our stuff is short-term rental, so it's got to be a decent standard anyway. But we wouldn't want to produce a product that we wouldn't want to live in ourselves. And that's, if it all went wrong for you, you'd be happy to go into any of your properties and live in it, wouldn't you? That's the standard that you're going for. But then the next level above that is, because you're so concentrated in the community, you'll know everybody, you'll be able to trade off your reputation a bit. So I imagine that if some property comes up from, somebody's aunt passes away and there's a property available, you'll be the first to know because you're active. And then you've also got the sponsorship of the local community assets, such as schools and things like that. I think that's absolutely amazing, but that can only come with scale, surely.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken us a long time to get to that place, and a lot of it is just about building our reputation in the market as well. It's funny you say about like someone's aunt passes away, and you're the first person to get the call. It actually works both ways. Right. There's a movement in our community that we bought so much of the houses nowadays that there's nothing for young people to buy.
Oh, God, right.
It's actually so far from the truth, because we're not buying houses that are we're not paying over market value for houses that are in really good condition with new kitchens and bathrooms.
Yeah.
Far from it. We're buying rundown stock and having to spend 20,000, £30,000 to get it back up to where it needs to be. We're buying the stuff that no one else will buy. So it's a bit of a fallacy, but we've been there for a long time. We have every intention to be there for a long time. So that's kind of the route we're really taking.
Fantastic. So because obviously you're so far away from your investment area, what's the process? So how do you identify a target property to buy? How does it come onto your radar? How do you go through the process of buying it, renovating it, and renting it out when you're so far away from it? How does it work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Because we're so well known in the market now, a lot of the estate agents just naturally come to us. I'll get an email, every other week saying we've got this coming to market. It's not the kind of thing that's going to sell well on the market because it needs so much work to it. Do you guys want to have a quick look at it before we waste our time marketing the thing? Or we'll get local families messaging us saying, hey, we've got this coming up. Are you interested? But also stuff on market as well. If there's something I think is good and a good price and nothing silly, I'll make an offer on it. And there's enough sort of meat on the bone to make an offer on quite a lot of properties. In terms of the daily management of it, so as I mentioned, my mum's full-time in business, so she's on the ground every day running the show. So some days she's running around 9 till 5.
What's your mum called?
Linda.
Big shout out to Linda.
Big shout out to Linda. Yeah, she's amazing. She's absolutely incredible, and she always says to me, I just wish I was 20 years younger, then we could really make a go of this,
Right.
So she's full-time in the business. So she is managing the day-to-day and kind of managing things like, I don't know, we've got it quite set up now with things like plumbers and electricians and stuff, where basically we have a Google form that tenants fill out with any kind of requests they have for repairs. We then assess that. Usually I run it past my my dad, and he says, right. Oh, I'll get in there with a plunger and sort that, lad. Don't pay that for 35 quid for that. But to be honest with you, these days I just go direct to the plumber, because the plumbers are really good, and because the plumbers and the electricians are good because of so much work, and they've been with us for such a long time. One of the plumbers, I think he's basically working full time for us at this point. He's so busy with our work all the time, whether it's refurb, whether it's repairs stuff. So I'll just basically send a WhatsApp and say, this is what needs done. Please, can you just, go out, this is the tenant's phone number, and they'll just deal direct with the tenants themselves. And they're pretty good. It's a local lad as well. Kind of everyone knows them as well, so quite decent.
Yeah.
So that's the way we can on a day-to-day basis. Then we have the refurbs. We have a team of tradesmen that we use. We've also got kind of other tradesmen we use if they're not available. But it's the refurbs are, right now I've got 2 refurbs on the go. I've got a 1-bed flat and a 4-bed house on the go right now that we're doing, and it's a lot easier now than it was maybe 12 months ago. It's not as hectic. It's not as much competition, easier materials, things like that. But we just kind of plod along with them. So we've got 2 project managers. One's my dad and one's my great uncle, and they'll manage a job each, almost like a site each, and they'll just get the tradesmen lined up and stuff. And I think probably the hardest part we've got on jobs is not the big stuff, not the stick in the kitchen and stick in the bathroom. And it's who do you get to come along and clean the windows before it goes to a tenant, or who comes and hoovers up all the carpets, all the fluff off the carpets, or who, it's these things. Who does that? You need to we've got labourers to use that, but it's these little things actually that you would just do yourself. You probably do them yourself, Andrew, but I'm Dubai, so it's a hell of a long way to come and pick up some fluff off a carpet, that. And then kind of my role within the business is identifying properties. I do all the finance, I do all the accounting stuff as well. I do all the legal aspects of it, so things like all the tenant referencing and the credit checking and all the kind of back end stuff of tenancy management. And I do all that with all the incoming sort of emails and stuff like that. So I do the kind of office work, if you like, in my evenings after doing my full-time job. So
what's the biggest number of refurbs you've had on the go at once?
Had 6 on the go during COVID, actually.
Did you? Right. And so do you just get your dad and your great uncle to manage them, or do you use some fancy project management software and like Trello or something where you can?
Yeah, I don't use stuff like that. My dad doesn't know how to log into his emails. Never mind use Trello. So although he's a prolific Facebooker lately, actually.
Is he?
But yes. Yeah, he's got a cycling club which we sponsor actually, and he does all their the run reports when they do like a trip somewhere. He puts all the photos up and stuff and writes that also. Anyway, but yeah, so it's we just deal direct with the builders and stuff. We work with these guys for a really long time, so we know they're not going to rip them off. I'm not going to get 3 quotes. I'm just going to say to the guy, look, the price.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Great. Let's do it. Let's just go for it. It's a pretty straightforward process.
That's so many of them. It's interesting how you do that. So they're basically subcontracting, or they're giving you a price and doing the work. So at the minute, I've got 4 big jobs on, and because we've been so busy over the past year or 2, I've ended up basically employing them directly. So they work for me. They're not on a price. Now that comes with pros and cons. So the pros are the multi-skilled people, they can do lots of stuff, and you save money quite a lot on that. But the cons are there's no urgency to get the job done. So when you're paying someone like when they've got a comfortable wage to live on, they're not really, it's hard to crack the whip. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what it is with our tradesmen? I know these people. I grew up with them. They know we know what the stuff should cost. They know that if they take the piss, they won't get the phone call for the next job. We've had tradesmen like that. We've had guys that sort of took the piss, especially in that kind of that year after COVID, where people were just at it. They were just charging for every single job going because they can get away with it. But those guys are the same guys that are calling us now, saying, "Have you got any work? Have you got any work?" The guys that were loyal to us, guys that stuck with us, we've always got work for them. We'll always have work for them, So they know what's how their bread's buttered on, and we're really good people to work for. I will never ever make a tradesman wait for his money. I pay the day they do the job, the day they send me the invoice, they're getting paid within an hour or 2. Send that money, and they all know it. Yeah. They all know it. We really respect them, really value them. So we'd never take the piss, and I think we've got a really good reputation for that reason, and we don't skimp on stuff as well.
Yeah.
If a tradesman goes out and he says, "Look, Mike, this needs a new boiler, mate. This is knackered. We're just nursing this along. It's getting a new boiler." Not because we're trying to BRR it and make a bit of money in the back end refurb.
£7,000 refurb.
Because it's the right thing to do. Because people deserve to live in decent homes. Paying good bloody money for this.
Yeah.
Our houses are cheap, so it's they deserve to live in a good house. So yeah, we always refurb properties, right? We're refurbing a 4-bed house right now. We're sticking in and 2 new bathroom suites and a new kitchen. And to be honest with you look at the kitchen, it's all right. Man, it's not great. It's pretty average. It's probably been in for about 10 years. It's a bit rough, but I probably could have painted it once. Do you know what I mean? And got away with it. But why? To save me what, £5,000 on a kitchen? Do you know what I mean? It's tax deductible anyway. Like, why wouldn't I do it? Or why wouldn't I bring up the EPC ratings on properties if I can? If I'm in a financial position to do so, then why would I do it? So that's kind of how we run our business. Like I said, you work in a small community like that, and everyone knows who you are. You see your van, and they know who you are.
Yeah.
You've got to treat people right. You've got to make sure that what you're doing is of a high quality and a high standard. Otherwise, it all comes undone pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm getting the loud and clear, what's being transmitted is you're not one of these kind of greedy landlords. And it's all over the news at the minute, isn't it? Black mold and landlord bashing and all the rest of it. But actually, that's the vast minority of the vast majority of landlords are like you and I that actually really want to do a good job and have nice properties for nice people to live in.
I don't really understand this whole greedy landlords with their black mold and like that. If I knew that mold in my property, I couldn't sleep at night because I'd be thinking about how I'm going to get sued for it.
Yeah.
Second thing from that, all I'd be thinking was, well, the windowsills will all be rotten right now, and the tenant, I've only got a £500 deposit from the tenant, so I'm going to have to replace those windowsills, and that's going to cost me £2,000.
Yeah.
So we better just get in now and giving them a dehumidifier that I bought on Gumtree for £100 off some guy, and loaning them the humidifier, try and dehumidify the property a little bit, figure out what the problem is, and fix it. You're better just to kind of create solutions as you go rather than dealing with huge big problems.
Yeah. Stop small things becoming big things, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just not sustainable, really. So that's kind of sort of where we're at right now.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've got a pretty substantial kind of portfolio. Is there any are we in the tens of properties or in the hundreds? Where are you at with your portfolio size?
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people don't like to say how many properties they've got on these podcasts, but I've got 68. So there's 68 houses. And we've got everything from we've got studios to 1-beds, quite a lot of 2-bed flats. We've got 3-beds. We've even got a couple of big 4-bed houses. We've got a 4-bed house that's worth like £500,000 actually, that's rented out to someone right now. Honestly, over the past few years, I think because it's been so hard to get deals, we just took deals wherever we can get them and just weren't fussy about what we're buying. Hence, we've got a £500,000 4-bed house in our portfolio that really has no business being there at all, if I'm totally honest. I had a bit of an odd criteria when I was over the past few years. Basically, for every £100,000 that was invested, I wanted to make £300 per month. That in cash. So when all was said and done, £300 in my pocket. That was the deal.
Net.
Net, yeah. That was my goal. So if that 4-bedroom house, £500,000, well, that's rented for £2,500 a month to some doctor from Dundee actually. So it ticked the boxes. I think my big concern now is that we're in a new reality now with interest rates and stuff. And you talk about interest rates if you want, about being an expat interest rates, because it's pretty scary being an expat with interest rates.
Is that right? Go on then. What's going on there then? Why is that scary?
So basically, the number of lenders that will lend to you is just very, very narrow, and they always have a premium on the rates.
Right. Okay. So can I just stop you and ask So, because I don't know this, so if you're an expat, are you not eligible for the majority of the mortgage products that are in the country that you're buying in?
Yeah. So basically, all of them. So
Right.
pretty much lenders won't touch you. If you say to, so if you start off by saying well, for example, if you start off by saying, right, well, I'm an expat, well, that takes the products available down from, I don't know, 5,000 to 200. And then you
Really?
say,
Right.
well, invest in Scotland, that takes it down from 200 to 10. And then you say, well, I'm investing in a limited company and we've got more than 5 properties. Suddenly you're down to 3 lenders. And then you
Wow.
say, oh, only buy at X local authority. And you know what? Our average purchase price is less than £100,000. Then suddenly you're stuck with like 1 or 2 lenders if you're lucky. So right now there's 2 lenders for Scotland right now that I can get finance from, which is pretty scary, you know. All of my lending is with one lender actually.
And they won't like that, will they? Because that's their exposure is high.
Well, I think it's interesting. I had a bit of a long-term agreement with this one lender. They saw from the outset what I was trying to do. They saw I knew what I was talking about. I put together a business plan for them that was submitted through my broker. And then we've had every time you want to move up a lending limit with them, you have a process where you submit your business plan, then they interview you and talk through your business plan, and then they approve for the next level of lending. So that's all how I've done my lending. That lender's on pause right now.
Right.
They've paused expat lending right now. It's a bit of a challenge.
Is it a UK lender? Is that how, or is
UK
it
lender? Yeah, UK
right.
lender. So, but
So
the interesting thing about Dubai as well is Dubai. For anyone who's ever lived in Dubai, they'll know that the banks lavish money on you here. So you know, the first, if you're a doctor moving over to Dubai, for example, the first month you move first month you move here, you could take your salary certificate and go to the bank and ask for an interest-free loan of £200,000. Sorry, a loan with like 2 or 3% interest for like £300,000, £200,000, something like that. They'd give it to you, cash.
right.
So yeah, I know that sounds mad. I know that sounds
Yeah.
absolutely mad. A cash loan of 3% interest over 5 years. But with a doctor's salary here, yeah, that would be pretty straightforward thing to get. It's a bit of a mad situation here. They'll give you huge overdrafts, huge credit card facilities,
Wow.
huge bank loans. You've got to be able to pay it off. Remember,
Yeah.
in Dubai, if you don't pay off your loans, then it's
They
not
cut
like
your
the
hands
UK.
off.
Well, they don't cut your hands off. You go to jail.
Right.
9 months prison. So yeah. So
wow. So are you able to get money from Dubai and use that to buy properties? Can you do that?
Yeah, I've done a bit of that. I've done a bit of bringing money from Dubai. It's one of those things you've got to be really careful because obviously lenders absolutely hate it.
Right.
So you've got to be really careful what you do with it. We did it and we used it for cash flow in the business, for refurbs and things like that. We did it. We didn't buy anything with it. We just used it for lots of refurbs. We had it ongoing at the time. And obviously that money financed out in the end. But it's just really careful how you're doing it. And also make sure you've got, if you're going to do it in Dubai, you've got a job that you can service those loans, right? That you can afford it. Living in much. So it's like London prices.
So, I mean, everybody, or certainly when I think of people in Dubai, I think of extreme wealth, and I think of, I mean, at the minute there's a Qatari business or Qatari group that's buying Man United for £6 billion or something like that. So there's a huge vats of money swashing about in the Middle East. So is it not possible to get an angel out there to fund your lending? Would that be cheaper than UK lenders, or is that not really a possibility?
Yeah, there's lots of these. I think they call them like family houses. Basically, they're like sort of wealth management funds for the big families out here, and they do invest in a lot of projects in the UK, but they're not investing at kind of my level. They're investing kind of big corporate projects, and also as well the kind of interest rates they're looking for is significantly higher than you'd want to pay.
Really? Right.
Well, you got to remember the rate of return in Dubai is much higher. There's lots of Dubai's booming right now, absolutely booming. If you want to create a business here, it would be far easier to create a successful business here, I imagine, than it would be in the UK. Just because there's such an influx of people to Dubai post-COVID. So the whole economy is absolutely just blowing up right now, especially post the war in Ukraine as well. Lots of Russians and even Ukrainians moved to Dubai as well. We've had about 500,000 Russians move here in the past 12 months. So I think that all of these people would probably find their money better deployed in projects within the UAE rather than sending out to the UK. The one probably benefit to the UK right now is the pound is so weak right now that the exchange rate's really good against the pound to the dirham right now. Remember, the dirham is pegged to the dollar, so it's really favourable exchange rate right now. Sending money back home.
Yeah, well, I mean, if somebody in the Middle East is buying in the UK, then they're buying at a discount already because of the exchange rate, aren't they? So.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So
that's fascinating.
It's a pretty good time, I think, best. So
yeah, and could you do things like portfolio building in Dubai? Is that something that you can do?
Yeah, I mean, my landlord owns 200 properties like the one I'm sitting in right now.
Right. Okay.
He's got a big portfolio. I think the good thing about Dubai is when you pay your rent in Dubai, you have to pay 12 months up front.
Right. So that's nice.
So like literally, I have to hand over a check for 12 months rent every September. So it's actually really, really good from a cash flow point of view. It's actually something I've employed on my own business in Scotland. I've been offering all my tenants to pay 6 months rent up front. 6 months the max you can do in Scotland. Right. 6 months rent up front. You get a discount for paying that 6 month rent up front, like a 10% discount or a 5% discount. And you'd actually be really surprised if you write out to all your tenants, how many will be willing to give you 6 months rent up front if they can get a 10% discount, off their rent. So
yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's really simple to do, and I just did it because we do it here in Dubai, and we got interestingly, we got about 8 or 9 of our tenants did it. And then we had this one lady call me up and she goes, "Can you come and see me? Come and see me next time you're home." And I know her for a long time. She's my friend's mum, and she rents a flat from us. And she goes, "I've got £50,000. What if I give you £50,000 up front? How much discount can I get on my rent then?" And she gave me the £50,000, and I just knocked off £200 of my rent every month. And she's delighted. She can't believe her luck. She thinks she'd got a payout from some like a workplace injury sort of firm or something. She had something with her hats, skincare with her hands. She was a hairdresser or something. And anyway, she got this money. She had no idea what to do with it. And it's 50 grand. It's quite a lot of money when you've never had much all your life.
Absolutely.
She goes, "Oh, I'll give it to you, son. I know you'll not rip me off and stuff." And we did roll up a contract and stuff with our solicitors, and there's just like one of my angel investors, this little old lady. Yeah, quite nice, and so she never wants her money back. She's like, "Just take £200 a month off, son, and when I die, just give the money to my son." So it's just so anyway,
that's fantastic. You've got to
highly
love
recommend doing that. Recommend doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. So you mentioned about tax. I know, I mean, obviously you're not a tax advisor, so nothing that we say will be is advice. But so your property portfolio produces an income in Scotland, in the UK. I presume you've got a holding company or something, have you? And then how do you draw money out of it, and what are the tax implications if you're an expat?
So it's a limited company we have set up, and if you draw money out of that through salaries or director's loan interest or dividends, you need to pay tax on it like any UK-based income you would do. Right. What I would say is there's certain things you can do that kind of alleviate that tax. Everyone's situation is different. You really need to speak to your tax advisor on it.
Of course,
certainly, I would say there's inherent benefits in living in Dubai. Quite significant benefits, but you need things have to be done properly. And HMRC right now is a bit of a nightmare. So it just takes quite a long time to set all those things up properly. So I would say that speak to a tax advisor, do it properly. I think it's important as well, if you are moving overseas, it shouldn't just be to save a bit of money in tax, because frankly, Dubai is so expensive.
Right.
I'm renting a pretty modest 2-bedroom house, and it costs about £50,000 a year.
Jesus.
Yeah, and it's nuts. But I don't know. I mean, I can't really relate to the UK because I've not lived there for so long. People tell me it's really expensive there too now, but I
It's
can't
not that
relate.
expensive.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't
the
think
rents you
so.
charge. Someone's living in a 4-bed house for £2.5 grand a month. They're not paying 50 grand a year, are they?
Yeah. So it is really expensive. So just kind of bear that in mind. But the salaries are higher in Dubai as well. So
Yeah.
if someone's to move to Dubai, you do get paid a lot more money, and it's tax free as well. But just remember that it's a lot of silent taxes in Dubai, right? It's the fact that everything is owned by the government. So, for example, the internet we're using right now, my internet costs about £100 a month. There's 2 internet companies, both owned by the government. The price is the same. There's no
Right.
competition. So it's
Yeah.
like, if you like it, well, where are you going to go? So
Yeah.
bear that in mind that it's pretty expensive in Dubai. If anyone wants any questions moving to Dubai, I'm happy to kind of give them some advice.
Yeah.
I've lived here so long that I kind of know all the ins and outs of it right now. So
There must be a little
yeah.
community of we both know Danny Inman. He must be a mate of yours, is he? Do you live nearby each other, or how does that work?
Yeah, so well, I used to be his neighbour. He used to live across the street from me, but I moved house. I'm actually going for coffee with him tomorrow.
Right.
But we have a small prosperity group here. There's about 5 of us now here, and then we've got if anyone wants to come to a networking event, the first Wednesday of every month, we have a networking event. We have a WhatsApp group. And we just tell them where it's going to be on the WhatsApp group. It's always in different places. And it's a really nice bunch of people. There's no cell or anything like that. It's just a bunch of people kind of talking up and having a few beers. It's quite a nice group, actually. And everyone's doing really things in that group as well, which is quite interesting. We've got everything from developers to, guys that have got their own lettings agencies and all the way through to buy-to-let landlords.
Yeah.
So,
I need to come out there just to go to one of these Wednesday meetings.
Yeah,
another friend of mine's out there, Alison Malone. Do you know Alison?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I do know Alison. Yeah, she's part of our group on the Wednesdays.
Right. Yeah. So I'd fit right in, I'm sure.
Yeah, you should definitely come out. Definitely come out. It's a good kind of. Do you know the good thing about Dubai is it's very inspirational. You come here, and I always feel like I always feel like wealth in the UK is people really look down on it. People think, oh, there's this kind of envious kind of look to it. People will, if you drive, I don't know, if you drive along in a Ferrari, someone will say, oh, look at that dickhead in this Ferrari.
Yeah.
In Dubai, if you see some guy in a Ferrari, all you want to do is go up to him and say, excuse me, mate, what did you do to get that Ferrari? What's your business? Can you tell me about it? Can you give me pointers? It's more that kind of atmosphere. It's more kind of like people are celebrating their success, and that's an environment I love to be part of.
Yes,
I'm all about positivity and celebrating. If my mates do well for themselves, I just think it's such a great reflection of how we're brought up or how we live. So that's for me is what I'm all about. I find that's one of the challenges we've got in the UK is the kind of in the UK around every corner of the green-eyed monster, and we'll say, oh, how can you do that, or why do you do that? It's not it's help funny. Me do,
Yeah, it's funny. There's different phases in the UK, I think. So as an observer, and I'm kind of moving through it myself now. So when you first start, everybody's rooting for you. Oh, go, Michael. Mike's trying to do this in property. Go on, Mike. Then you get to a certain point and it's, oh, you've been so lucky. Look how lucky you are. Nobody sees the effort. And then you get past the luck stage and it's, oh, wanker. Do you know what I mean? So there's different layers that people progress. I mean, just look at Anthony Joshua. Everybody loved Anthony Joshua when he was coming up. Then he became world champion and everybody wants to knock him down. So it's that I cannot abide that about the UK mindset. It really annoys me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think people forget that it's the compounding effect of doing the same, so it's the compounding effect of the same effort every single day.
Yeah.
The one thing I'd say about building a big portfolio like mine is it didn't just happen overnight. I didn't just buy a portfolio off the shelf. it was the compounding effect of doing the same thing over and over again. It was rinse and repeat. It was buy, rinse, repeat, next. Do you know what I mean? Build it, build it, build it, and grow it. That's how it works.
But there's a lot more to it than that, though. There's a lot more. I mean, that's the fundamental of it, but there's a lot more to it. I mean, you've got to have tolerance of debt. You've got to have tolerance of risk. You've got to be willing to take calculated risks that other people wouldn't. I mean, you won't own your portfolio outright. You will have debt, and a lot of people are petrified of debt, aren't they?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Especially in the environment we're in right now, where the interest rates are going absolutely crazy. It's been such a challenge. Over the past few years, we've really scaled the business a lot, and this year we just can't seem to get moving because of the interest rates. It's really been a challenge for us. And if I'm totally honest with you, Andrew, I don't really know what's next for us.
Right.
I think if you'd asked me 3 months ago, I would have said, we're going to buy 10 more this year and 15 more the next year, and we're going to have 150. And by the time I'm 40, and then we'll see where I'm at. Maybe I'll go full time in the business. We'll see what happens,
Yeah.
But now I'm just thinking, I just not too sure what the next move is for us. This year, so far this calendar year, we've bought kind of just random stuff. We bought one house outright cash, 2-bed flat. And honestly, the only reason we bought that was because we owned all the other houses in the block, the other flats in the block. Sorry, we felt we had to have it.
Yeah.
Then we bought a butcher shop. I bought a garage last week. So just just random stuff. But it wasn't really our model. Our model we'd kind of refined, and we're buying the same properties over and over again. We're buying 4 in the blocks, ex-council flats, or 2-bed terraced houses in kind of these specific villages. But yeah, it's a bit of a challenge right now because the markets for an expat getting finance, it's really quite challenging.
It sounds it. Yeah, absolutely. So you'll have had to come up with some creative ways of financing things. Then I think we touched on in the past kind of 20 minutes or so that things like mortgages, obviously. Then you'll have moving money to fund refurbs, and then presumably bank loans, credit cards, overdrafts, whatever you can use that meets the need at the time.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's kind of what we've been doing. Is just any which way to pull in the money, So just moving money around wherever we can. I've got some pretty big overdrafts here in the UAE, but overdrafts in the UK as well that we can utilize to help you kind of try buy things cash.
Yeah.
Then you can just pay them off with the cash flow in the business. But also, we're at the point now where, because we've got such a big portfolio, we actually have quite a lot of monthly cash flow in the business. So technically we could probably buy another property every month or two, We could deposit no problem at all and just add another one to the portfolio. But it's
getting the kind of lending to support that deposit, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the lender that we were using before, when I'm going to them right now, they're quoting rates of like 9% interest on a buy-to-let.
Oh, my neck.
And buy-to-let.
And before we started, I was whinging about my 7.5% service accommodation mortgage.
Yeah, I mean, I've always paid around about 5 to 6% interest.
Right.
Always, on my lending, just because as an expat, that's what you need to pay. But it's become ever more challenging, and I think it's just about being mindful of that and knowing that as an expat, there's a lot of benefits of being an expat. I think if the banks understood the benefits of being an expat, they would be much more comfortable with the lending. Certainly, if I was a bank manager, I'd be far more comfortable giving me the money. If you look at my track record, if you go on Companies House and look at my company and the record behind the company, there's 4 years of accounts. Do you know what I mean? They show you exactly what's. And if you look at it like that, but it'd be far easier for someone walking up the street with very little experience and get the first buy-to-let mortgage than it would be for me. They get a much better rate than I would as well, which is madness to think about it like that. But so
especially
right now,
with your track record.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I don't know what to do. A part of me thinks that I should sell off some of this bigger stock that we've got Some of these big 4-bed houses, and these, we've got a couple of houses that are worth like a couple $100,000 each, and they just really don't suit this new reality that we're in right now with interest rates the way they are. If it's going to be maintained for 2 or 3 years, when I try to refinance them, they're not going to get the forget what's called, like the debt to coverage ratio. Like the amount of mortgage you have to, the amount of rent you have to get every month to cover.
I see. Income coverage ratio.
Income coverage ratio. It's not going to fit into those kind of molds anymore. So I'm going to have to really pay down the debt on those properties. So it doesn't really make sense anymore. So it'd be better just to move them on and take the equity out of them and pay down other properties in the business or reinvest in other areas. So I'm not too sure what's next for us right now, to be honest with you. I just got married last month. So I'm just taking a bit of a, thank you so much. I'm just taking a bit of a pause, to be honest with you, to enjoy all that sort of stuff as well. And just, was it honeymoon, all that. So just that for me, it's just been about taking a bit of a pause, seeing where we're at, and then just looking out for new opportunities. I think.
Yeah, I'm sure there must be phases that you have to go through when you've got a decent portfolio where you need to trim the less well performing assets. And I mean, they might perform well, but if they're not meeting your return on investment criteria, then cut them and, stockpile and go again. That's it's it's your business, not mine, but that seems like a sensible approach.
Yeah, another big thing what we've been really trying to do is consolidate areas where we own properties, because we've got quite a big portfolio. We like the idea of owning certain streets or owning certain cul-de-sacs, things like that. I know that sounds a bit silly, but
that sounds a bit of an ego drive.
No, but it actually makes a lot of sense. For example, I'll give you an example. There's just one cul-de-sac, and it's a cracking little cul-de-sac. It's actually quite quiet and it's quite nice. But there's basically just higgledy-piggledy parking all over the place. The parking's a mess.
Right.
But because we bought up the majority of that cul-de-sac, we managed to be able to, get the council to allow us to create off-street parking, all the properties, create parking slots. We kind of lobbied them to create parking slots in the middle of the cul-de-sac itself, and now it's a much more pleasant place to live for our tenants, and the value of it. If you look at that cul-de-sac compared to the next one along, the values are more in that cul-de-sac simply because it's a really pleasant place and there's lots of parking and it's much better, Plus, if you own in Scotland we have lots of blocks of 4 flats. So if you own all 4 flats in blocks, you've got kind of control over, who's in what properties and things like that. Where we've had some challenges in the past, actually, when other landlords put kind of like really poor tenants into some of the other flats, things like that. It's been a real challenge for us.
Yeah, that's interesting as well, really, because I mean, there's one particular street in the area that we like to invest in a place called Redcar, which is in the northeast of England, and we're slowly, I think we've got 3 or 4 on that street now, and it's not a very big street. So by doing so, we're buying the houses that even the foxes wouldn't enter, and turning them into nice places. So that you're actually improving the area if you concentrate where you're buying, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, for me, the big thing is pushing the values up as well to make sure that you're getting even better return on your money.
And you're creating your own comparables, aren't you, as well?
Exactly. Yeah, which is the great thing about it. So
that's fascinating. So just as we head towards the close, then, have you got any? Was there any particularly good or bad deals that you've done that stick out in your memory?
Oh, the worst deal I ever done was in Dubai.
All right.
So I bought a flat in Dubai, and I thought, so it was really interesting. I bought this flat. It was on the 42nd floor of a skyscraper, one below the penthouse, and I paid about pounds. Let's call it £320,000 for this flat. Very basic 2-bed flat, good size, nice flat, beautiful sea views, beautiful marina views, a good flat. But the problem is that it had been owned by a really wealthy Afghanistani man.
Right.
He basically had turned it into his little palace. So, it really looked like, gold mirrored tiles on the walls and the ceiling. A disco ball in one of the bedrooms, ornate gold bathroom suite. It really was something to see.
Yeah.
I spent about another £50,000 renovating the whole thing. making it much better. It took me 6 months to do because, of course, it's on the 42nd floor of a skyscraper, so it's an absolute nightmare to get materials up and down the lift.
Yeah.
Nightmare to get on the project. Took 6 months to renovate. I lived in it for 4 years, and during that time, the market crashed.
Right.
Dubai market's not like in the UK. It's a yo-yo. It goes up and down, up and down. We're still not in Dubai. We're still not at the same peak prices as we were in 2007.
Really? Right.
Yeah. So interestingly, the guy I paid, so in dirhams, I paid 1.65 for it. The guy before me had paid 2.5 for it. So he lost so much money on it, but he must have had to sell. So anyway, but when that property, when all was said and done, I'd probably spent about 360,000, 70,000 pound on it. And I ended up selling it for 350.
Oh,
yeah, because the market was down, and that was the market I picked up. At one point, I would have had to sold for about 250. The market dropped so much, and the reason I sold it was because I felt the building was going downhill. I felt like the neighbors were moving in weren't the same caliber as when I bought the place 4 years earlier. But I say, was it a bad deal? Well, I lived in it for 4 years. All my mates were living in the same buildings, but I had the most beautiful apartment. I'd renovated to a really high standard. The interest in the loan every month was like, £400 a month, whereas my mates were paying about £1,500 a month to rent their place. It wasn't the best deal in the world, but I think basically, time you think about living in it and the quality of the apartment I had, I think I basically broke even on it.
yeah.
But that was probably the worst deal I've ever had. But it was an experience. It was a bit of a laugh at the time.
Yeah.
I did have an amazing apartment to live in for 4 years. The best deal I ever had was this amazing old 4-bedroom stone house that I bought in Scotland, in this village, Tayport, that where a lot of our properties are. And it was a family had come to me, and they basically said, look, this house is such poor repair. There's no kitchen, there's no bathroom, there was no heating system. We don't want to put it on the market. We just don't feel right about it. We just want it gone. So I got it for 150. I spent probably about 30 on it, and I got it revalued at 260.
Oof.
So it was a real winner. I've still got it right now. I rent it for £1,000 a month. But that's another one of those things, Andrew. That's a property, for example, that I refinanced it. I pulled all my money out and some. But now when I go back to look at the coverage for the mortgage payments, that's not going to refinance at these interest rates these days. That's going to have to go.
Yeah.
And I can't get more than £1,000 a month for it, because frankly, that's what a 4-bedroom house rents for in that village, £1,000 a month, whether it's worth 250 grand or not. So that's one of those ones that I'll probably have to sell or invest, use that for money for other projects, because it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah, but you might have an emotional attachment to it because it's your best deal, and then you might not want to sell it, and that. So you've got to look at it from a business perspective as well, haven't you? You've got to take all emotion out of it.
No, to be honest with you, I really don't think that way about properties at all. I'm just kind of like so unattached to properties. I think because I've never lived in any of them. I kind of don't want to live in any of them. So I don't really think that way about them. They're just yeah. I mean,
that's the way you've got to do it. It's a business at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's kind of the way about it. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that's been an amazing chat about what you're doing and what where you're up to at the minute. So if people like the cut of your jib, where can they find you?
Yeah, just honestly, the best place is on Facebook or on LinkedIn. It's just, Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
It's just Mike Lawson Dubai. So Instagram, Mike Lawson Dubai. Facebook, Mike Lawson Dubai. And you can find me on there. Feel free to add me. To be honest with you, I don't put much property stuff up. I just put pictures of beach Dubai or travel adventures I've been on, or me and my dog out for a walk or something. So
yeah.
But if you want to see about the business and what kind of stuff we're doing, it's just at Lawson Lettings on Facebook, Instagram. Again, we don't put a lot of stuff about property investing up there. It's more to do with local community sort of things, or properties that we're renovating right now, or our target for our Lawson Lettings pages is more prospective tenants within our community. That's more kind of the aim for it, rather than other people want to hear about our property journey. That's not really, we don't put things like that up there on it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do like your Instagram actually. As you and I follow each other on Instagram, but I do like wistfully looking at the beaches that you've found yourself on, and you're flying into the Maldives and wherever else. It's. I mean, you're walking the talk. You're not like one of these, stood in front of somebody else's Lamborghini type people. You're actually, a genuine guy doing genuine things, and you've done it the hard way. So, yeah, I couldn't recommend following you enough. It's
I've not got a Lamborghini, but I just got a new car yesterday.
really
I'm thrilled with it. Yeah, I've got a Land Cruiser, this big 4-wheel drive thing.
right. Yeah,
Follow
Toyota.
me on Instagram because I'm going to have loads of camping adventures in the desert and stuff like that. So I'm very excited about it. It's
Yeah.
not
Well,
quite a Lamborghini, but I think it's better.
if you go to Dubai, you've got to go into the desert. They've all got Land Cruisers, haven't they? So,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, so.
Mike Lawson, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, mate.
Cheers. Thank you.